So we're here today with
Ben.
I wanted to ask you, Ben, about gay culture and where it's at in 2024. How old are you?
I'm 34.
Okay, you don't look a day over 26.
Thank you very much.
What's the state of gay culture at the moment? Do you feel like it's getting more toxic because of social media and dating apps, or do you feel like it's in a good place?
Yeah, so I think it certainly has similarities to how straight people have it. Like, there's a lot of hypergamous relationships going on. It's very difficult to find people. Fortunately, I'm not in that position where I'm looking, but yeah, it's very difficult these days. It's been made harder by all of the dating apps. They've actually made apps harder to use. It used to be that they were much easier to use, like OkCupid. It used to be you can match with people from the other side of the country and you could do it for free and you can message back and forth. And now it's very, very difficult to do that.
Why have they made it more difficult?
They made it more difficult because once people have a successful match and they stop using the service, well, then they can no longer extract money from you or advertise to you.
Right.
So
They've got the incentive to fund their staff, their office space, their other costs.
exactly, and profit.
Of course, that's the big one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love capitalism. Profit is great. Profit is important. But yeah, unfortunately, it does cause negative consequences to society overall.
Do you see a way around that? Can you imagine an app that's sort of like a charity and it gives really good prompts, lets you work out what people are actually like?
I don't think there is a way around it. I think the way we have it now is it's just a natural consequence of incentives due to profit. And so, yeah, I don't think it's likely going to change until there's a cultural shift around it, which I think it's starting to be that. There's starting to be people who are like, they're not using smartphones as much. They're trying to get off of dating apps and start meeting people in person again. So I think that's a positive cultural change.
Yeah. Charlie Munger, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome.
Absolutely, 100%.
So what would you say is the biggest difference between straight culture and gay culture at the moment?
Oh, good question. Well, so for gay men, there is it's much more overt. There is like a hookup culture. It's not really frowned upon. No one really has to like pretend they're not into it. Whereas with I think more so with women, there's like they have to kind of pretend to not really be into it type of thing. Although unfortunately, promiscuity is through the roof and actual relationships are on the decline, and yeah, so not good. But I think that's one of the key differences, just the acceptedness of being extra promiscuous and sexual.
And why is it accepted to be extra promiscuous as a gay man, but not as a straight man or a straight woman?
Well, just men are different than women. I mean, men in general, like they pursue sex more. So women have to be more selective evolutionarily because they have to carry a baby for 9 months and then also provide for the child afterwards. Whereas men don't really have to do that. A man can reproduce as much as he wants, and if he supports the kids, great. But I mean, that's not strictly necessary from an evolutionary biology standpoint. And so when you get two men, neither of which gets pregnant, they just do that. Whereas with women, they still have, even though there's like a cultural shift towards promiscuity, there's still this biological evolutionary consequence that women have around needing to have some semblance of staying faithful. And so there's a bit more shame for women than there is for men.
Yeah. And something I'd be so interested to ask you would be about toxic masculinity, because it's thrown about a lot by straight women towards men. Is there toxic masculinity rife, or at least accusations of toxic masculinity in the gay community?
I've not heard a good definition of what toxic masculinity even is. What is it? I would like to know. And so to me, it sounds like it's just a nonsense word that is intended to shame men for having traditionally masculine views and desires. I think it's perfectly acceptable and perfectly normal for a man to want to be strong, successful, being able to provide and protect for women, and wanting a woman who is submissive. Women, even the boss bitches, and even these more, I would say, masculine women who want to be in charge of everything, they still want a traditional man. They want a man to take care of them, provide for them, pay for everything. They still want that. And so they want a traditional man, but the man wants a traditional woman. And the woman traditionally would be submissive, follow his lead, not in a domineering, controlling way, but in a protecting and providing type of way. And so, yeah, so I don't even think toxic masculinity is a thing. It sounds like a garbage term made up by Marxists. Now, as for toxic masculinity in gay culture, there's not really very many accusations of that. There's a lot of sort of a wide range of acceptance for various forms of or various degrees of masculinity. Very effeminate men are largely accepted. Very masculine men are actually quite celebrated among gay people. There's not that much oh, you're too masculine, or oh, why are you like that? It's very rare, actually.
Yeah. And I guess the danger of throwing around a phrase like toxic masculinity too much is that people get scared and they go the other way, and people actually try and hide their emotions or whatever else. But then that's not masculinity either. You know, masculinity is about integrating your emotions, not showing them too much or too little.
Yeah, I think masculinity is perfectly healthy, just like femininity is also perfectly healthy. They're the consequence of evolutionary biology, and our evolutionary biology serves us as how we got here.
And I guess the fact that we are here today and we've evolved to this point shows that real masculinity and femininity are healthy, because otherwise we wouldn't have survived as a species, right?
Exactly. So for men to be traditionally masculine, it means you take care of and protect and provide for the people that you care about. You take care of your children, you take care of your community, and you take care of your family, you take care of your wife or your woman. For a woman to be traditionally feminine, in my view, is to be a caring, nurturing mother who does a good job rearing children, and also is a good supportive partner to the husband. The husband is the one who has to go out hunting, go to war, go earn money, and provide for the rest of the family. And the woman's job is to bring him peace and to be a sense of calm in his life when he's otherwise dealing with war out in the real world, just to provide.
It seems very polarized, and 54% of men that are Gen Z report that they didn't have any relationships as a teenager, which is pretty shocking. If you go to the pub with a group of lads and you ask them about their experience in relationships as a teenager, only half of them could tell you an experience at all. How do you think we get out of this situation?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and unfortunately, there's an increase in overall loneliness, the loneliness epidemic, and also people tend to not have as many close friends anymore. For people in my generation, as we've gotten older, people they move in with a spouse, they have kids, and so friendships just kind of fray as a result of family pressures. But also, my brother, my youngest brother, he's still in his teens, and they don't really go out and do stuff. Like they're just on their phone rather than going out to do something at the mall. They'll watch a video of a TikTok of someone doing something stupid at the mall, but they're just on their phone, in the living room type of thing. So it's unfortunate. We've sort of, life has become so, I think it's largely a consequence of phones in general. People are just constantly glued to their phones. It's constant dopamine seeking, and we get the dopamine hits instantly without trying. And so we don't really have the incentive, or not the direct incentive, to go out and do stuff for fun with people. Because now you can get the dopamine hits. Also, it's more fun in some senses to see the people that you actually want to see on social media versus going out to a bar or a club or whatever and interacting with people who maybe they're kind of awkward, maybe you want to go home, so that the imperfection of the in-person socialization actually provides as a counter incentive to actually going and participating at all.
Of course, it's risk aversion. If you're at home on your phone and you haven't really had a chance to see the beauties of the world because you're young and you haven't traveled, especially because of COVID and lockdowns or whatever else, why would you go outside and risk being Me Too'd or rejected by a girl in a club when you can just buy a sex doll and go at it, or have an AI girlfriend online that nurtures you?
Right, exactly. The AI girlfriends, the robots, those are coming soon. And
they're coming. They're going to be coming soon, and in more ways than one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very sad because interacting with people it's a wonderful thing. We're a social species. Even people who are rather introverted like myself, it's still important to get some socialization. That's how you are able to function in the world. And by having social skills, that allows you to find a mate. It allows you to be a better parent. It allows you to do better in your career. It just gives you an overall more fulfilling life. And so if we don't get that socialization earlier in life, then that hampers the ability to get relationships and maintain and deepen relationships later on. So it's actually quite sad, unfortunately. As for reversing it, I don't know. I think it really just is a cultural change that needs to happen, which is easier said than done, because we still have all of these incentives of easy dopamine hit play on your phone, and it's getting worse with the whole Apple Vision thing. And we're soon gonna be like that movie WALL-E, where everyone just has a screen in front of them constantly, or the Matrix type of thing, where you're just glued in, and there's destitution and destruction and poverty all around. But as long as you have your headset on, you can do whatever you want. You can be on the moon. You can dance with the stars yourself virtually. So I don't really know what the solution is. I'm not personally, I'm not very optimistic about the future, but all we can do is be aware of these things and do our best for ourselves and for the people that we care about, inform them, and try to encourage people to move in a better direction.
So much wisdom tapped into, and I really appreciate your time. What would your advice be to someone my age? I'm 19, who's overloaded on dopamine. They're stuck at home. They don't want to take the risk of going out. They want to take the hedonic instant gratification option rather than playing the long game.
That is a wonderful question. So, firstly, just because something is immediately pleasurable does not mean it is the best long-term decision. So, for example, take a child, like a 5-year-old. Child, if a child could, would just eat ice cream every day, all day. What's going to happen if that child does that? A whole bunch of bad things. Like, that's so bad for the child's health. And as the parent's responsibility is to protect the child. And you can allow the child to have some fun, have some ice cream here and there, but you cannot allow that child's impulses to take over everything. We have to.
But you're encroaching on their freedom. Isn't it all about their pleasure?
Yeah, that's fucking stupid. So I think what people need to do is intentionally. The way I describe it is there's cheap dopamine and then there's earned dopamine. If you get cheap dopamine hits from, being on social media or getting OnlyFans or whatever, that's cheap. It's undeserved. Dopamine is a signal. It's a reward signal in the brain that tells you what you did is a good thing to do. And so whenever we do something like eat some junk food, we are signaling to our brain that this is a good thing to do that we should do more of. So what we need to do is reject cheap, unearned dopamine. That's what I call it. And we want to have earned dopamine. So it's good to have dopamine, and you just need to use it correctly. So the way you get earned dopamine is you go have that uncomfortable conversation. Go talk to that person you're attracted to, see if you can get the phone number. Go to the gym, work out, have a good workout. Try to start a business. Do well in school. Do something productive that is going to advance your position in society and in your life, and that gives you dopamine. Don't just eat ice cream, eat fast food, jerk off to Pornhub. That still gives you dopamine, but that is unearned dopamine, and by doing that, you're actually reducing the joy of everything else in life. If you're constantly jerking off to Pornhub, then the joy that you would experience from actually being in a relationship is dampened. It's less joyful. It's less enjoyable that way. So by not engaging in cheap dopamine activities and by engaging in the earned dopamine activities, it actually increases your joy in all of those areas. And also an interesting thing about dopamine is you can get kind of burned out on it. If you just eat ice cream every single day or you're jerking off to Pornhub 3 times a day, the first time you jerk off in the morning, great. The 5th time this week, the 20th time this week, it's not as enjoyable. It's just not. And so by overloading yourself on cheap unearned dopamine, you're actually reducing your overall joy in your whole life, and you're reducing the joy and fun that you get from the specific activity that you're doing. So what we need to do is reduce the cheap unearned dopamine, increase the earned dopamine. There'll be less frequent dopamine hits that way, but it's going to be a more productive thing for you. It's going to make your life better. It's going to make your family and relationships better. It's going to make you more money. You're going to be healthier, stronger, more proud of yourself, more confident. And also, you're going to have a better sense of joy and overall contentedness in your life. So that is what I would say. Avoid unearned dopamine, pursue earned dopamine.
It's baffling to me that in science lessons in school, we're taught about stem cells rather than the dopaminergic system.
Yeah, well, school is mostly a waste of time, unfortunately. And, if they don't want they don't want people who understand how things really work, because then people wouldn't want to just follow along with the traditional life path of, get a job, work a job, get into debt, school debt, college debt, 100,000 in debt, house, debt, car, debt, get married, she divorces because she has no incentive to stay and she actually has an incentive to leave, and you lose the house, you still have all this debt, and then you're 60 and you're fucked with a ton of debt, no wealth, and you're totally screwed. So if people are critical thinkers and they think about what's the best long-term decisions, unfortunately, it makes me very sad to say that, unfortunately, it's just not in most people's or most men's best interest to get married anymore, which is very, very sad because marriage is a beautiful thing. And so unfortunately, that's just the way the world is now. And, it's not going to be an easy thing to fix. I don't know if it is fixable. Maybe it is over a long enough time frame. But all we can do is do our best for ourselves, for the people that we care about, make good decisions for ourselves, for our health, for our wealth, for our mental state, for our mindset, and move forward. Like there's always been depressing things about the world. There's always been nasty, harsh realities around the world. Like today, it's easier than ever to not starve to death. It's easier than ever to travel to other parts of the world. I actually just came here from the United States, as you can probably tell by my accent.
And the vest.
Yeah, so I flew here. I got on a plane yesterday, and
Where in the USA?
I'm near Boston, Massachusetts. So yeah, it's easier than ever. There's so many wonderful things about life these days. people generally aren't starving to death anymore in the first world, in the developing world, and increasingly in the underdeveloped world. People, are living longer. There's less, we don't. It's not a World War II, World War I situation where millions of people are dying in a very short period of a few years. So there are many wonderful things. Hi. There are many wonderful things about the world right now, but there are also many terrible things about the world. And unfortunately, the good comes with the bad. And so all we can do is understand what are the negative influences that are on my individual life? What are the negative influences that are going on in the world that affect me personally? What are the best things that I can do? There's I'm not going to get it exactly right. It's the serenity prayer. I'm not religious, but it's a serenity prayer. It's something like, God grant me the courage to change the things I can, the peace to accept the things I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. So that's very important. I am not by myself going to fix the whole problem with social media and people being constantly addicted to their phones. I'm not going to do that, but I can, to whatever degree possible, influence the people around me, influence myself, and have this conversation to hopefully help some other people. So there are some things that I can do, and I'm doing that for myself and for for society in general. I also try to be a good role model to myself and to others. So there's a lot of bad things about the world, true, but there's also a lot of opportunity. It's easier than ever to get rich than ever before in human history. So there's a lot of positive options. There's a lot of positivity in the world. So just focus on the positive. Look at what you can do to improve your situation and the situation of the people that you care about.
I guess what you're alluding to there, to wrap up quickly, is that we're actually almost too affluent in Western societies nowadays. I mean, there's that whole saying that strong men create good times create weak men create bad times create strong men, and it goes round and round. And tapping into that, we almost feel like we have to be victims in some form or another, because that outsources our agency and our responsibility. It's not my fault, it's the government's fault, it's depression's fault, it's anxiety's fault, it's culture's fault. And we almost need to get back to taking responsibility, don't we? And it's thrown around a lot, in some ways better than others, but ultimately it's true, We need to accept that we're in a privileged position and use that to fuel why we should do incredible things, not blame our situation and say that we're not in a good position.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And, everyone ultimately is in the driver's seat of their own life. I am responsible for my life. Even if I feel like I'm not, even if there's depression, even if they're destroying the US dollar, even if whatever, I am still in charge of my life. No one else is in charge of my life. No one can be. Even if I wanted to let you be in charge of my life, I can't do that. It's impossible. I am in charge. I am in charge. I always have been in charge. I always will be in charge of my life. And that's true for everyone. Everyone is in charge of their own life. So if your situation isn't the way you want it, yes, there are external factors. Yes, there are other people, but ultimately it's on me. Self-accountability is the best thing to do, period. Sure, maybe someone was born missing arms. Okay, it's not your fault that you're missing arms, but your life is still your responsibility. You still have to do the best that you can do with whatever you're given. Some people are born richer, some people are born taller, some people are born smarter, whatever. Ultimately, it's on every individual to do the best that they can with their situation. And the victim mentality thing, you're absolutely right. That's largely exacerbated by how affluent we are in the West now, where we don't struggle to feed ourselves, really. We're not worried about getting killed walking down the street for the most part, although that's changing in many cities because of all the rise in crime and the police particularly not caring about it. But that's details. So overall, our lives are very, very, very safe and secure, and they're more safe and secure than they have been in almost any point in all of human history. So yeah, the whole victim mentality thing, it's kind of like, oh, I just need a reason to struggle. Okay, that's fine, but give yourself a good reason to struggle. Give yourself an actual challenge that's going to advance you, not take away your power. If you're saying, oh, I'm a victim because XYZ, so I'm going to go be depressed and cry in a hole, that's not a productive way to say it. If someone says, oh, I'm depressed or I have anxiety or whatever, I'm going to channel that energy into doing something powerful and positive, like going to the gym, making money, earning a degree, whatever it is. You can, all there is energy. Sadness is energy. Depression is energy. Excitement is energy. Motivation is energy. It's all energy. So all you need to do is take that energy and channel it in a positive direction. You can take energy, you can take your emotions and channel them in a negative direction. We all know people who do something and then they go off the deep end, they go into drugs, they go into addiction. That's taking maybe depression or anxiety and channeling it into a destructive channel. But you can take that same energy and channel it in a positive way. We know there are people who, for whatever reason, they get depressed, the girl breaks up with them, whatever, and then they say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. They fucking kill it, and 2 years later, they're like super jacked, And so it's just a question of, you have the energy, whether it's sadness, depression, anger, guilt, anxiety, fear, excitement, motivation, all of it is energy. Do you channel it in a destructive way? By default, a lot of people just by default move in that direction. Or do you consciously, intentionally take your energy and move it in a way that's going to make your life better and the lives of people around you?
There's nothing more terrifying and more freeing than knowing that your life outcomes are your fault. I think we can end it on that note. Thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for waiting as well. I appreciate you.